Yes, everything we perceive in the world, without exception, is really, we could say, like a motion picture of our mind. So we're used to getting like photographs and snapshots, but a motion picture is what the world seems to be. It seems to be in motion. And so, at one point Jesus says that this world is really nothing more than the call to witnesses. So, of course we've all called forth the witnesses of doubt. Most of us for years, starting off with birth, having a doctor whack us on the rear end and going, crying at birth or something, during childbirth. It's still, those are witnesses. And even childbirth can be, we could say it's a witness of pain. There are usually tears or pain involved in coming into this world. And then there's a lot of witnesses that come forth, beyond that. But then as you start to really follow your inner calling, you start to draw forth more and more witnesses to the love inside of you. And that's how it's gone in my life. It's just started off, and then there was, my grandmother was a good example of a witness of unconditional love. Before I had A Course in Miracles, she just was this witness of unconditional love. I could never do anything wrong in her eyes, ever. And she lived to be 99 years old, so it was a very strong witness in my life of the truth in me. She would say things to me like, I can't believe God would send anyone to hell. And I'd say, yeah, I can't believe that either. She would reflect things back to me. So, Jesus says, I'm calling you out of the world, meaning He's giving us a new purpose that will lead us to happiness and lead us to the real world, or a different perception of the world. But whenever we see doubt, it's always, if we see it reflected in the world, in this body, that body, in any body or anything, then it's just our opportunity to teach what we would learn, to strengthen in our awareness that which we've been given by the Holy Spirit. And we grow strong from that. I know I've had lots of opportunities over the years to grow strong. When it seemed people were saying, I don't believe this is possible. Helena, you were saying, Helena has a sister who's a professional cellist. And what was she telling you? It's not actually possible to be happy all the time. Those kind of witnesses will come. And then that's just an opportunity for oneself to go inside and say, okay, do I have the faith that it's possible to be happy all the time? And then to go deeper into that experience of that happiness. That's really what it is about. Not about pushing anyone away, not about verbally trying to teach people things, but it's more about really being honest with ourselves about, do I really have the faith that it's possible to be happy always? That's how I would see that as an opportunity. And I know I've spent some time there at your house, so I've seen Johan and his laughing and twinkly eyes and everything, so I've seen that, and I know with people in my lives, there are times when they seem that way, and there are other times when, if they seem like something else, then it's still my call to be true to my heart and to what I'm being given to do. Because I always felt that the calling for God is really for everyone, regardless of how they seem to be on the surface. Underneath, they want this witness of love. Everybody's calling for the love. So it's maybe, instead of saying it's better maybe to say the ego is still calling forth a witness of doubt. But I am pulling my mind away from the ego. I will no longer feed it and support it, and no longer align with it, and then, we grow strong. In the world they say it builds character, but it's actually building more than character. It's building up our awareness of truth inside. That's why Jesus called his book A Course in Miracles, because he knew that we would need miracles. We would need it's like a bright light shining into your mind from above, lighting it up and inspiring you. And then at first you could say the miracles come here and there, now and then, and that makes it not so easy. You've got the old way, and then you've got a miracle here and there and now and then, and the ego is saying, forget that. It will try to dismiss all the miracles. And then it takes becoming more consistently miracle-minded. Just like, in this world they say you've got to have good habits. Make good habits. Well, with the Course in Miracles, he's asking us to be a miracle worker, and he's asking us to have good miracle habits. To think of miracles and think like miracles naturally. So we're taking the place of the old way with these new miracles, a new way of looking at things. And just like with anything in this world, it takes practice. I think sometimes people can be so afraid of A Course in Miracles that they will study it, and they will just think, okay, I guess I'm just supposed to study this, and they will study it for years. My friend Carrie would travel with me to course groups, and she went to one group with me in Florida, and they had been going on for 20 years studying it. They were still arguing about different things in the book and this, and she was probably like about 32 years old, and she just came to me and she said, please tell me that in 20 years I'm not going to be in a group like that, studying and arguing about passages. And she just said, and there is a part in the Course where Jesus says the ego enjoys studying itself. It's a very important line. And of course, if it's so frightened about the actual experience, then it will try to just have you become a scholar. And that's what happened back in the days of Jesus, that they had all these rabbis and priests and people that were devoted to God, but Jesus had to come and correct the scribes and the Pharisees because they got so much into the letter of the law. What you can do on the Sabbath, what you can't do, all these rituals started to take over. And Jesus, he came to show the spirit of the law, but not get caught up in the letter of the law. And basically, the ego thought Jesus was breaking the law, doing things that he shouldn't be doing on Sabbath, and he wasn't keeping all these little rules. And Jesus was there to demonstrate the spirit of the law, really to fulfill the prophets and to fulfill the commandments, and he was the fulfillment, the living experience of all these things, and the ego was nitpicking, and even trying to trap him with laws. But he was really good. He was like Neo in the Matrix. You cannot heal on the Sabbath, the bullet said. Arise and walk. Master, you must not do that. It's the Sabbath. You're not allowed to heal on the Sabbath. I mean, that's a good example. You can heal 6 days a week, but not on the Sabbath. Why would God set up a 7-day-a-week system with healing on 6 days and prohibited That's just a good example about the ego tries to take control over something, Power, control, I spoke at one church in Canada, and before I got there, this was like a really open-minded church. It was called Religious Science, and before I got there, they were doing a series on the Buddha in this Christian church. So I'm talking open-minded. There was a whole week-long series on the Buddha before I got there. But I got there and I spoke so deeply that you don't have to go to intermediaries, that it's all within you, and this and this and this, that I and 4 of my friends, we spoke for one day at the church, and I think the church attendance dropped the following week by like 20%, the attendance for the church. Because the message was really, you have it inside of you. I wasn't there to grow the congregation, I was there to speak the truth. So that kind of shows you how, in this world, if you get into your purpose and function, you may go through phases where people around you say, I don't like that. I don't like what you're talking about. I had a Course in Miracles facilitator who facilitated the course like every week for many, many years, and then I went there and the Spirit took it down deeper and deeper and deeper, and her face just kind of shrinkled up and she just went, those ideas you're talking about are not popular. And I thought, well, it wasn't my idea to try to make them popular. If you think about the metaphysics, if the ego made this world as a defense against the truth, if you let the Spirit start using you, it may appear to the world that you go through a phase of becoming less and less popular. But that makes sense. If the Spirit is calling us out of the world and we're speaking the words of the Spirit, it's not like the ego is going to enjoy this, The ego is undone by this. So I know a lot of decisions I've made in my life, I feel it's been great because it's brought me to peace of mind and happiness, but at the time I was making them, they weren't always popular decisions. Your parents may want you to go on and become something. I'm sure it wasn't a popular idea for me to leave graduate school without coming away with the prize. That would be seen as a waste. Like, why did you put in all that effort and time? I already had 2 degrees, but I was working towards a 3rd. I had a scholarship to go for a doctorate and this and this. So from some angles it was like, oh, such a waste of potential. And the Spirit's like, oh no, you were wasting your potential. Now you're starting to fulfill your potential by waking up to who you truly are. But you see, even with grades in this world, children feel such a pressure, and young people feel a pressure of good grades and achievement. It's like a built-in pressure of having to achieve and achieve and achieve. There was a girl of about 10 or about 11 years old in Spain, and her mother was a Course in Miracles student, and her grandmother was a Course in Miracles student, and the girl, Claudia, when I came to the Canary Islands, she asked her mother and her grandmother if she could take off school to come to my gatherings, and they said yes. So we listened I played a lot of music in the car, and we talked a lot and shared, and the 3 generations, the granddaughter, the mother, and the grandmother all spent a week with me. And then at the end of the week, the girl, who was about 11 years old, Claudia, they had to translate it through to me from the Spanish, but she said that she wanted to retire. And she wanted me to talk to her mother and her father for permission to retire from schools, because I could tell it was going that way. When I first went to go to her home, her face got all sprinkled up, and she's like, mathematique. She was not thrilled with mathematiques. Nothing about mathematics was inspiring. She was a great artist. She was like a young Picasso. She was drawing all the time, and she was making spectacular paintings. And when she came to my gathering, she had a little notepad. She was drawing, and she drew Adam and Eve, and she drew the Garden of Eden, and she drew a snake, a little snake in there, and she drew a tree. I guess it was supposed to be the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and then it had a black apple. That was the representing the ego, the black apple. Adam and Eve were there, and there was this tree with this black apple. And then on the other side of the paper, she drew the infinity sign. And I pointed to it, and it was Dios. That was God. So she's 11, she's took off school to listen to me for a week, and she's getting it. She's actually drawing it. I passed the drawing around the whole room so everybody could see it. And then she finally just said, ask him if I could retire. And she was very serious about this. And I could tell that I would talk to her mother, Susanna, about that, but her father had been a professional basketball player, and he would not have had the ears to hear, your daughter is ready to retire from school at 11. But I did talk to Susanna about it, and I did tell Susanna that she could start selling some of her paintings. There's nothing to say that when you have such a highly developed skill that you can't sell the paintings and have money coming into the family in that way, because it's speeding it up towards a retirement plan. I was kind of giving her, go for it. Start selling the paintings. We'll work from there. In one sense, again, she would seem to become financially independent through her paintings, and even in the world's terms could retire a bit from the system, from the whole system that way. So you really have to see that the new generation, they want to just get the parachute and jump out of the plane a little faster,